About a year ago, I put together a brief series of 3 videos titled Hiding in Plain Sight. This catchphrase caught my attention for a time, so I used it to make the point that truth does just that. It hides in plain sight. In Matthew 13, Jesus called it seeing we don't see. What does this mean? It means something remains hidden because we don't understand or perceive it. Such is the case with any topic or subject that is new or foreign to us, and thus requires our attention until such time that we truly get it. Recently, I revisited the idea of fullness because I learned the following long ago. Who will he teach knowledge? And whom will he make to understand the message? Those just weaned from milk? Those just drawn from the breasts? For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. For with stammering lips and another tongue he will speak to this people, to whom he said, This is the rest with which you may cause the weary to rest, and this is the refreshing, yet they would not hear. If there is anything that marks the present generation, I believe it's the word distraction. Google states that a distraction is something that diverts your attention away from what you're supposed to be focusing on. Technology and social media, while offering unprecedented connectivity, have ironically become major sources of distraction. We might expect that these advancements would foster deeper human connection, but the reality is often the opposite. Constant stimulation leaves us fragmented and unable to fully engage with the most important aspects of our lives. Jesus referred to this as the thorns, where the cares, riches, and pleasures of this life stunt our spiritual growth and we bring no fruit to maturity. Isaiah 28 talks of a rest and refreshing that stays out of reach because we do not hear. No doubt this same condition prevailed in Jesus' day, made evident in his teaching on the parable of the sower. The greatest rest we can attain is in the heart and mind. The idea of rest makes me think of the days of Noah, for that's what the name Noah means. One such truth that hides in plain sight is that of time and times and half a time. Even up to this present moment, my understanding continues to shape and grow. Please consider. And the 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the third part of men. Having read this passage many times before, one day it dawned on me that an hour and a day define time, while a month and a year define a season. In the creation story, God calls the light day and the darkness night. So time is not so much about linear movement as it is about light and darkness. As I brought out in part 12, a half or dividing of time refers to a separation of light and darkness. This being the case, times plural is this light and darkness, this day and night. In other words, they coexist. This certainly agrees with our reality, does it not? Both naturally and spiritually. When Jesus came to the Jews, there was only time or darkness, a ministry of death and condemnation. But once he brought the kingdom of God to bear, there was now another time to consider. Light. The evening gave way to the morning. Time gave way to times, and a half a time or separation began, continuing to this present hour. No wonder Jesus said, "Watch therefore, for neither the day nor the hour." Tradition still looks into the future for a literal day and hour that is not coming. So why am I pushing so hard on this understanding? Because it sheds light on another. As I mentioned earlier, it's fullness. To be perfectly honest, the idea of fullness intrigued me for some time, but it also managed to frustrate me. Why? Because I knew I was missing something. What was I missing? Like other things I've missed, the truth was hindered by that sneaky little snake called tradition. The one that stands up in your mind and argues with you about the logic staring you in the face. Don't be fooled, dear brother and sister. If you think that tradition can't get you, or hasn't got you, think again. It's a very powerful force that has succeeded in dumbing us down in ways we don't even realize. It wasn't that long ago that God flipped my apple cart over and emptied most of my apples on the ground as I stood there with egg on my face. That's why studying is important, and so too an open mind. Much of what Christendom thinks is true stands only on the fact that so many embrace it. But truth has nothing to do with numbers. In fact, more often than not, the more who believe it, the more likely it's wrong. Didn't the religious leaders in Jesus' day think they were right? But were they? I think not, since they managed to murder the Lord and many of his disciples as well. Many today do the same thing. They just use words instead of nails and crosses. So what was the real problem? I kept trying to put things in the future that didn't belong there. But thank God for his grace, understanding, persistence, and patience. So, back to fullness. 7 is fullness, typifying the end of a complete cycle of sowing and reaping. This is fruit. The next or 8th step is the harvest and separation of the good fruit from the bad. Or, in light of day and night, a separation of light from darkness. Remember, 8 is a new beginning, the start of another cycle of sowing and reaping. 7 is fullness. Fill a glass of water to its brim, it's full. But if you continue to pour more water into the glass, it spills over. In a manner of speaking, have a flood. This agrees with the days of Noah. However, hiding in plain sight is the fact that the days of Noah include the days before the flood, leading to the day that Noah entered the ark. There is a distinct difference between the two. Before the flood, and in obedience to God, Noah prepared. Then he entered into what he had prepared. If we fail to watch and prepare, we can be taken. No, not in a rapture, but by the intensity of the self-absorption that rises daily. Those taken in Noah's day were taken by the flood. Noah and his family, secure in the ark, were not. The days before the flood led to the fullness, but once it was reached, water spilled over, and a flood ensued. The flood is synonymous with birth, for the water in the glass is now outside of it, just as a child is, when brought forth from the womb of its mother. So how does this equate to times? Because there are 2 births to consider, equating to darkness and light. Cain was the firstborn, then Abel. Ishmael was born first, then Isaac. Esau first, then Jacob. First the natural, then the spiritual. Is there a pattern here? I will stop at this point, but in the next study, we'll revisit some things and hopefully shed new light on the subject at hand. Please feel free to like or comment or subscribe. I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you, and thank you for being a part of Grain of Wheat Publishing. May God bless you in your walk with Christ.